I've been a Bitcoin noob for too long, but I feel like I'm finally beginning to blossom and mature. After all, speaking of maturing, I have a level 99 RuneScape fishing coffee mug with a green glass straw. But now, let's talk about Bitcoin. I first bought Bitcoin as a joke on January 5th during the Georgia runoff election while we were talking about needles. Yes, I know this is a very weird introduction, but this is all true. But over time, I've grown more and more interested in Bitcoin. Now, this isn't a super deep dive on Bitcoin, but it is a deep dive on my strategy and how I want to invest in Bitcoin and why you might consider investing the way that I plan to invest in Bitcoin. First, there's little doubt in my mind that the blockchain technology is the future of finance, and it's helpful to have a little bit of a background in this thesis just in case you're not super familiar already with blockchain, just to understand my thoughts, and if you are already super familiar, hey, critique my thoughts and my opinion here. Leave me a comment, I'll make sure to read as many as I can. I'm super excited to see what you think. But here's the thing. Blockchain has the capacity to eliminate commercial banks, be safer by preventing fraud with a transparent history of all transactions, be faster by eliminating disasters like the Robinhood shutdown or what led to the shutdown of Robinhood ending the trading of GameStop and AMC and costs and all this disaster because P+2 could be solved by the blockchain. In fact, the SEC is already studying blockchain security settlement to solve this exact problem before it ever even happened. The problem is that experiment isn't planned to be done, or that study isn't planned to be done, with a company called Paxos in coordination with the SEC until December of 2021. So unfortunately, the GameStop crisis came a little bit too early. But ultimately, cryptocurrencies using blockchain technology are a phenomenal tool for cross-border transfers and trade as well. You don't have to worry about currency exchanges, you don't have to worry about these interbank transfers and pit stopping there and federal clearing here and their central bank clearing. It's all done direct, and it's transparent, and it's fast, and it can be instantaneous. Even though it technically doesn't even have to be instantaneous, it could be. Now, to me, Bitcoin isn't gold, and it won't replace the world's monetary systems. Those are hopes that others have. I think those are valid arguments, that maybe Bitcoin is a digital gold, that maybe Bitcoin has the potential of replacing the world's monetary system. Not a belief that I hold. Hey, if those things end up being true, it just increases the thesis. I'm going to assume that those things won't be true. It's kind of like a worst case scenario. Those things won't be true. Or maybe it's my base case scenario, which it is. But anyway, to me, there will always be a fiat currency. There will always be a Jerome Powell cranking the money printer, at least as long as we stay in this current, present, future, if that makes any sense. But anyway, what I expect we'll have is a tokenized fiat. So maybe instead of walking around with dollar bills and credit cards, we'll have things that let us transact with tokens or digital currencies, but digital currencies that are still fiat. So basically, instead of having a dollar bill, you have a digit on your phone that says, cool, you got one coin. And it is basically the same thing as $1 bill, but it's just digital instead of paper. But it's still fiat. They can still print more of it. They can still manipulate it and pull strings the way they want. Sure. So we might have tokenized fiat in the future. We'll have more and more stable coins in the future. And Bitcoin obviously is a type of coin, but it's certainly not stable. The value goes up and down like crazy, and we can go into a detailed discussion on the difference of stable coins and non-stable coins, assets like Bitcoin, but that's not so important here. Instead, I think simplifying my thesis is most important. Here it is. The blockchain will become more important of a part of our lives, whether or not we want to be a part of it. That's an important thing to think about, because many folks who hear of blockchain put their head in the sand and say, too complicated, I don't understand, I'm not interested. But the blockchain and blockchain technology will become more present, whether we like it or not. More and more banks are going to start offering stable coins using blockchain services. More and more deposit accounts, like savings accounts and checking accounts, are going to offer better benefits if you use a stablecoin with blockchain technology. And because of this transition to the blockchain, my opinion, more and more people are going to realize the power of the blockchain, because once you start using it and you go, oh, I get more benefits of this, I get more safety and speed and efficacy with this is not that bad. What happens naturally thereafter? Well, more people and more institutions realize, wait a minute, if blockchain is good, what's the number one and maybe the number two investment I can make in blockchain? Bitcoin and maybe Ethereum. There are other investments as well. Of course, we can talk about Dogecoin and we can talk about Litecoin and many others. But for right now, we want to focus mostly on my investment thesis here. The more the blockchain becomes familiar, the more I expect Bitcoin to increase in price and value over time. However, like I mentioned earlier, Bitcoin is very volatile, which is very different from risk, which is important to remember as well. Volatility means prices go up and down a lot. Risk means something has a higher likelihood of going to zero. In my opinion, and I have a high conviction of this, Bitcoin is not going to zero. I do believe that Bitcoin could see a substantial sell-off between March and July of 2021 if inflation ends up falling like I expect it might following March, April, and May. We'll see. There's a potential that Bitcoin could have a sell-off. But to me, my thesis will be consistent, and my strategy with Bitcoin will be consistent. Bitcoin is going to be something that will be a part of my portfolio going forward, and it will become a larger part of my portfolio as time goes on. Over the next 4 weeks, my goal is to have a total of $1 million invested into Bitcoin. That will represent around 3.5% to 4% of my stock market portfolio. I'm going to lump crypto and stocks together here. And my plan for the rest of the year is to end up more than doubling that. And by the end of the year, having over $2.5 billion, I wish billion, $2.5 million invested into Bitcoin. This means very soon, Bitcoin will represent somewhere between 8% of my portfolio, maybe as low as 5%, but potentially as high as 9% of my portfolio, depending on kind of how my portfolio lays out. I don't think I'm going to have Bitcoin be any more than 10% of my portfolio, but I do want Bitcoin to be a substantial portion of my portfolio. Now, my goal over the next 2 years, starting this Thursday once my wire clears, is to start building this portfolio slowly with cash that I have available as my income comes in. And then for the rest of the year, keep building and building this and just dollar cost average up, mostly with Bitcoin, though I may add a little bit of an Ethereum exposure. It'd probably be something like 80% Bitcoin and 20% Ethereum. We'll see. I'm still researching Ethereum, so I'm not quite ready for the Ether just yet. Now, how am I going to do this? So this gets interesting. Right now, like a noob, I have some of my Bitcoin at, well, actually I have all of my Bitcoin over at Robinhood. And this kind of sucks because in order for me to move my Bitcoin from Robinhood, I actually have to sell it and move the cash. There's no brokerage transferring my Bitcoin, unfortunately. If I do that, though, I end up paying a substantial amount in taxes on the Bitcoin that I own at Robinhood, and I have no intentions of selling this currency. So I've got, well, let's say I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. I currently have about $120,000 in Bitcoin profits, and 55% of that would go away to the federal government and state of California solely by me making a transition from Robinhood to another account. So there is a possibility that I may decide to keep some of my Bitcoin funds at Robinhood solely to avoid a 55% immediate